We've looked at the best player from every major category, but now we're doing the same for starting fives and seeing the best fives we can make up out of the best from these 11 categories. So let's go. Starting with the best shooting starting five of all time, and this one goes to Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Dirk Nowitzki, and Karl Anthony Towns. I think three of these guys are locked in with little to no arguments against them. As for Klay Thompson, some would say Ray Allen deserves the shooting guard spot, and while he's made more threes all time, I think when you compare percentages, in-game ability, and the actual records and hot streaks we've seen Klay get on, it's easy for me to say that he's the second best shooter of all time. Maybe not so much since returning from his injury, but hopefully next year he gets back on the right track. And as for Kevin Durant, I know some people would argue Larry Bird deserves this spot for best small forward shooter, but when looking at the body of work combined with the volume of threes both guys have actually shot, it really turns into no question that this spot belongs to KD. And as for this five as a whole, they're actually not too undersized from top to bottom, but I think their big guys may get bullied down low a little bit, and on defense they would all have a pretty rough time. But then on offense, having all five of these guys spreading the floor to shoot at elite levels would be pretty tough to defend. But first, before we go any further, shout out to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring today's video. Raid is one of the best mobile and PC games out there with global PvP, massive PvE boss battles, and over 600 different champions that you can customize and gear up any way you'd like to fight off some of the toughest challenges across the game. Like the Minotaur boss. Well, he's actually not even that tough. He has the ability to hex your team, causing them to take more damage, but he still doesn't hit too hard. The way I personally beat him is by using champions with turn manipulation and powerful buffs and debuffs to just knock him out when he's most vulnerable. And in doing so, it rewards you with powerful scrolls that you can use to power up each of your champions and earn them specific abilities. My favorite part of Raid Shadow Legends though is how often they update the game. Like even this month, we're seeing the release of the Forge Pass Season 3, which gives you a ton of in-game rewards based on your progress, and a limited edition artifact set. But in my opinion, the best update this month is the new Madame Sarah skin. She's one of my favorite champions in game, and now we get to switch her up to look like that. But wait, there's also the debut of the new legendary champion Ultimate Death Knight, which is finally the upgrade everyone's been waiting for. So obviously this is the best time to get started in Raid. And if you click my link in the description or scan my QR code here on the screen, you'll get a unique bonuses worth $30. We're talking the free epic champion Verges, 200k silver, 1 energy refill, and 1 XP boost, and 1 ancient shard. So you can summon awesome champions as soon as you get in the game. All this treasure will be waiting for new players for the next 30 days, so sign up now. Shout out to Raid for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to it. As for just specifically mid-range shooters, we have Chris Paul, Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant, Dirk, and Al Horford. And I don't think there's really any debate against any of these five being included here. All of these guys have other aspects of their games that are great, but when it comes to mid-range, they're elite and rarely ever miss open opportunities from that distance. For playoff time, Chris gets on streaks where he can get to his spot and make them one after another. That was a huge part of MJ's game in general. KD can shoot from anywhere, including mid-range. Don't forget Dirk's signature fadeaway was a mid-range shot, and with Al Horford, I'll be honest, it was hard to find a center here, but he actually is the perfect fit because the shot is a major part of his game. With dunking, the conversation gets a little more controversial. We have Russell Westbrook, Michael Jordan, LeBron, Blake Griffin, and Shaq. And okay, I think some of these need a little explanation. Westbrook, I think we can all agree on that for point guard. Maybe Ja Morant would take the spot, but until we see more from him in game or he actually enters a dunk contest, I'm not giving it to him. Zach LaVine had some of the best dunk contest dunks, but if you take into account in-game and contest dunks, MJ easily takes it. LeBron is a no contest. I think overall Zion may be a better dunker than Blake Griffin, and Aaron Gordon has had the best dunk contest dunks of all time, but in terms of entire body of work, I gave the slight edge to Blake. And then Shaq was just a monster, so I threw him in at center. And now as a whole, even though we're looking at a very specific category within the game, it still gives us a starting five that would be an all-time great one. I mean, with MJ, Shaq, and LeBron in the same starting lineup, I really don't have to go any further in depth with this one, but I will say that this team would be pretty terrible from the perimeter, but again, it would probably work just fine. Now, if we made a lineup based on who the best in NBA history was in terms of post moves, it'd probably look something like this, with Luka Doncic, Jordan, LeBron, Tim Duncan, and Kareem. So again, we'd have MJ and LeBron, which is crazy enough already. But also notice Luka making it into this one at only 23 years old, because the fact that he's 6'7" and has dominant post moves, while obviously not many other point guards can even operate in the post, made this one an easy choice for him. And it was a tough one to put Kareem over a guy like Hakeem Olajuwon, because well, Hakeem had the dream shake and was one of the most technically sound players down low, but Kareem's straight up ability, skyhook, and ability to be a problem in the post in his prime and at an older age was really what won him this spot. Switching over now to the defensive end of things, we have blocked shots, and the five that comes from this category is Ron Harper at point guard, Michael Jordan once again at shooting guard, I'd say Andrea Karlinko at small forward, then Tim Duncan and Mark Eaton. So okay, this lineup definitely has the least amount of star power out of any of them so far, but it's still a great one. Now again, we have MJ winding up in nearly every single category, but it's just hard to argue anyone else over him. I thought about either KD or LeBron for small forward, but Karolinko specialized in defense and even averaged over 3 blocks a game twice in his career, which is insane for a small forward. Then Tim Duncan and Mark Eaton don't really need much said. As a whole, these guys would dominate, give an elite defender at every single position, and it'd work out pretty nicely with everyone able to take on their own unique role on the team. Plus, having Tim Duncan to stretch out the floor really helps. Passing and assists, we switch things up quite a bit with Magic Johnson, James Harden, LeBron, Pau Gasol, and Nikola Jokic. And really the only one here that even needs justifying is James Harden. Just because I saw a lot of people saying maybe Manu Ginobili should have this one, for how elite he was as a passer, and the fact that he would often run the Spurs offense for a lot of their games, and always find and set up open teammates. Well, that's true, and he might be slightly more gifted at passing the ball, but Harden did so on such a bigger scale as a full-time starter and league MVP. He didn't come off the bench and run the offense when asked. He did so every single game for the entire game in Houston, and that's what helped him lead the league in assists. Plus, he demanded so much attention, he'd often get off passes out of double teams and throw perfect alley-oops, so he gets this one. As a whole, this is probably the least athletic front court we'll see in a video like this, but that doesn't at all affect their skill level. And as passive as the two of them are, along with Magic Johnson, there would be a lot of unselfishness. But with having guys like LeBron and Harden on the team, they would be ready to take over whenever needed. When looking at the most durable starting five in NBA history, it takes us down a little bit different of a path, with John Stockton, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Karl Malone, and Kareem. All of these guys played so much longer than most other players at their positions, and each of them pretty much had 20+ year careers, which is nearly unheard of in the NBA. And not only did they do that, but they maintained playing at such a high level for most of them. In fact, out of all of these five, Kobe Bryant was the only one who after all that time had his career come to an end because of a major injury. Everyone else just kind of walked away. Now, there were a couple of other guys who could have made this lineup like AC Green or Robert Parrish, just based on the fact that they were true Iron Men of the game. But again, when you account for and include the skill aspect into this was the five we had to go with. For rebounders, this one's a little more obvious who our lineup is, with Russell Westbrook, MJ, LeBron, Dennis Rodman, and Wilt Chamberlain. So again, we have virtually an unstoppable lineup, mainly thanks to MJ and LeBron being the best of their positions in pretty much every single category. Aside from them, I actually almost put Luka Doncic at point guard over Westbrook, because Luka's never been accused of stat padding, and he's put up way more rebounds early on in his career, and when it's all said and done, he will have by far more rebounds than Russ has. But we can kind of only go off of what's already happened, and not what we believe will happen, so we had to keep it with Westbrook since he's averaged double-digit rebounds 3 separate times in his career, and hasn't slowed too much down on that end since 2014. And as for the front court, there's no doubt that these two may be the two best rebounders in NBA history. So if you had them on the same team, well, I just really feel bad for everyone else. For the all-time greatest free throw starting lineup, we have to give it to Steph Curry, Ray Allen, Rick Barry, Dirk, and Marc Gasol. And Mark was the only real surprising one off this list. I maybe would have expected someone else, and I also didn't expect him specifically to shoot them at such a high percentage. But he shot 86% from his career, and aside from him, everyone else on this team pretty much shot 90% from the free throw line. Most notably with Rick Barry shooting his like a grandma, which is actually the most efficient way to shoot them, and Steph Curry being statistically the best free throw shooter in NBA history percentage-wise. With the all-time steal starting lineup, I'd say we have to give this one to John Stockton, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Karl Malone, and Hakeem Olajuwon. And man, I just feel bad for every team that went up against the 90s Bulls, given the fact that they had two of the best all-time at stealing the ball on one team. It must have been a nightmare for everyone else to try to get through that defense. Now, it was also pretty surprising for Karl Malone to have earned the power forward spot. I just never thought of him as someone who got a lot of steals. But he is the all-time steals leader in terms of power forwards, and of course that's also thanks to his long career. He was always consistently good on that end his entire career, never averaging under 1 steal a game for a season. And of course John Stockton was in the same boat, which also had to have made the Utah Jazz a pretty scary team to go up against. Then Hakeem Olajuwon makes sense because he was always a defensive mastermind and excelled at stealing the ball. Then finally we have scoring, and the best scoring starting five in the history of the NBA goes to Steph Curry, Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant, Karl Malone, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And talk about a team, a lineup that has a little bit of everything, and this is it. On paper, this is one of the greatest teams ever assembled, with a great blend of offense, defense, scoring, size, and leadership. Of course, Steph Curry only has 2 scoring titles, which is a little less than someone like Allen Iverson at the same position. But when you take into account just how Steph scores, it would be a crime to not include him as part of this list. Jordan had like 10 scoring titles, so it was obvious to include him. And even though LeBron's gonna be the league's all-time leading scorer this season, comparing his abilities to Kevin Durant's, and I just think we can all agree he's the better scorer, given the fact that he's probably the best pure scorer in NBA history. And Karl Malone and Kareem, sure they had longevity, but they were also impossible to be stopped for their 20-year careers too. So keep that in mind, it's not just that they were able to remain injury-free and all that, but it's also the fact that no one was able to figure them out for that long, even as they aged. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more like it, drop a like on the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.